Hey guys, Paul here today. I just saw an RX Muscle where Dave Palumbo reported the cause of Bostin Loyd's death. Evidently, Bostin's mother reached out to Dave to discuss his autopsy report. She wanted to share it with the bodybuilding community as to help prevent other people from suffering the same fate that Bostin had. Evidently, he passed away from a dissected aortic dissection. An aortic dissection is a condition where a tear occurs in the inner layer of the body's artery, aortic artery, and then blood rushes through the tear to the inner and middle layers of the aorta and cause it to split open or dissect. If the blood goes to the outside of the aortic wall, it spills into the cavity, the body cavity, essentially you're dead. Sometimes they catch it early. People don't die. It's rare. Usually when it happens, you're a dead man. There was a bodybuilder, Chris Dim, if memory serves me correctly, that they caught his earlier and were able to save him. And I know Chris suffered some serious consequences from it, but I think they caught it quick and were able to save him. Evidently, Bostin's father had a weakened and enlarged aorta. Essentially, it starts to bulge from a weakening. It's usually genetic. You have a weak area in your aorta, and think of it like a garden hose. If you've ever seen a garden hose that's been under a lot of pressure that sits outside, and sometimes you'll get a section of it that just blows up like a balloon. That can happen to your aorta. I don't know if that's what happened here with Bostin. It's sometimes the aortic dissection can be, from what I understand, can just be a sudden thing. The aorta might not be bulging, but so it may just rupture suddenly. If the artery is hardened, that can cause the tear, or if there's a weakness in the artery that's a genetic thing, that can cause the tear. So it's likely a genetic thing that caused it. It seemed that his father had the same thing. So, but it's also, lifestyle choices didn't help this. Like when guys, I can tell you when guys crush a lot of oral steroids, they fuck their lipids up. They take anti-estrogens, they abuse anti-estrogens, they fuck their lipids up, and then they end up with hardened arteries. And a hardened artery could be susceptible to a situation like this. You have high blood pressure on top of it, pressing against that hardened artery, and that artery can split open. Now, that's, not to say this might not have eventually happened to him regardless, but certainly lifestyle choices played a role in what happened here. I know Dave Palumbo said it was 100% genetic. And there is a genetic component to it. And certainly from what Dave was saying, that Bostin's father had warned him about his situation. I guess Bostin's father had surgery to fix it. And I don't know if Bostin actually went and had any diagnostic testing done or not. Maybe not. Knowing how he lived his life, he probably just ignored it. So it's possible, Dave suggested maybe he had a heavy lifting session at the gym. When you lift, your blood pressure goes even higher. If you already have higher blood pressure, you have a hardened artery. That artery starts to split. It may have split while he was in the gym, and then it finally just ruptured when he got home. And more than likely, it would have been a quick death. So hopefully the guy didn't suffer. But there are lessons to be learned here for the rest of us. And anytime I see situations like this, I'm not trying to capitalize on somebody else's misery, but there are lessons for us to learn in things that we can do to help, prevent other needless deaths. And I would say in this situation, one big takeaway is controlling your blood pressure and getting diagnostic testing done for your heart health. And being careful with the use of oral steroids, being careful with the use of steroids that raise hematocrit to ridiculously high levels, because your blood essentially turns into sludge at that point. and, just taking better care of yourself. Like I said, this may have happened regardless, with or without the anabolics. Now, certainly, Bostin went to extremes. He was in, I think, stage 3 kidney failure, which may have been also exacerbated by high blood pressure. I know that he was using some sort of experimental drug or SARM. I don't know what the fuck it was that he claimed caused his stage 3 kidney failure. That probably was just the straw that broke the camel's back. That's usually how these things work. You have a chronic situation where the body can handle a certain amount of stress and then eventually just breaks, and which is probably what happened with his kidneys. But my guess is from the extreme amount of drugs he was taking. And I know he was taking shit tons of things like Anadrol, which is famous for making your blood pressure extremely high. You hear of dudes bleeding out their fucking eyeballs when they use Anadrol, when they're powerlifting, when they're lifting heavy and having nosebleeds and shit. And that's because your blood pressure goes through the fucking roof. Imagine that happening in your aorta. So that would be my speculation, is that it was a bad combination of genetics and his lifestyle choices. Think of it this way. You have that person who smokes cigarettes their entire life, then ends up having lung cancer. And then there's the person B who smokes their entire life and never gets sick. They live to be 90 years old. Person B had better genetics than person A, who had a genetic predisposition to have cancer. And if person A had not smoked, they may not have ever gotten lung cancer, or they may have gotten it later on in their life. And this situation is something similar to that. But with that said, Bostin knew that there was risk factors in genetics in his family, so that is something to pay attention to. I know in my family that high blood pressure and diabetes run in my family, so these are things that I have to pay attention to, and I do my best. I'm not saying I'm without risk. I could fall over dead tomorrow. It could happen to any of us, but just learn from this. My sympathies go out to Bostin's family. I hope they are okay. I know they're probably going through a tough time right now. I saw that there was a GoFundMe up. I should probably give some money to it. And the rest of us should give some money to it. He's got a young wife and a child that are without a father right now, and so we probably should all help if we can. All right, guys, take care.